So, Be'ezrat Hashem, okay, we continue. We are Pasuk Chaf. After Shlomo HaMelech identified, explained, and pointed out the different threats surrounding a person, whether it's socially or internally, in the Nefesh Adam, with the Yetzer Hara of the person, and its threats that it represents. Now the Shlomo HaMelech will take a stand for the Chokhmah, for what is right, for what should be obvious, and will go on a tangent to be extremely virulent and opinionated, and to a certain extent even accusative, right? For those who don't listen to the Chokhmah. And that will go all the way until the end of the Perek. So until now, it was addressing the problem, the Musar aspect of it, the reason why not. Let's not forget, no accusations, no punishment addressed. And then he's going to jump into, from now on, like almost belittling the simple-minded person that allows, on one aspect, the social peer pressure or influence of those type of people, or the Yetzer Hara, depending if we look at the Yetzer Hara, or the four types of people that surrounds a person and to influence the person. And he will be very, very, very opinionated, okay, until the end. And then he says, at the end of the Perek, after shambling, okay, the simple mind, the person that allows himself to be taken for a ride, okay? The last two psukim of the Perek, Ki meshuvat petaim tehargem, the tranquility, right? The yeshuvat da'at of the petty, of the simple, of the idiot, yes? Tahargem will kill them. Veshalvat kesilim te'abedem, and the complacency of the ksil, of the fool, te'abedem, will bring them to be completely lost. Veshomei ali, and the ones who listen to me, ishkon betach, the one who listens to me will dwell safety and certainty. Vesha'ana mipachad ra'a, and he will be untroubled, right? He will be sha'anan is he will be he will not be disturbed mipachad ra'a, from the fear of bad. Okay. Now that's the end of the Perek. So just so to put things in in perspective, and we understand. Now we're going to hear the voice of Shlomo HaMelech, okay? To number one, the pride we need to take to the Chokhmah and the position it should really take in our life, and how opinionated he is to shamble and belittle those who disrespect or disregard the true value of the Chokhmah. Okay, it's about 11, 12 sukim, but we're going to build it, right? And now, yes.
Is it okay? I'm just curious, when we hear about Shlomo being so strong and opinionated, was he as strong and opinionated externally to his people at the time, or just in his writings?
Both. This is Mishlei, yes? Let's not forget, Mishlei is the sefer that allows people to understand through examples, okay, what the Torah wants to teach us when it comes to the nefesh ha-behemit, to the desires of food and the desires of physical pleasures. So it's talking to everybody. This is Davka that's how he shares the sodot of the Torah with everybody. That's how we started with the Mishlei, right? That's where we started. לתת יפתאים עורמה לנער דעת ומזימה ישכן. It's the messages that are shared on different levels based on the mashal and the understanding of each person. Okay, so we start but now we pasuk chaf. Chochmot bachutz tarona. The chochmot, right? Wisdom cries outside. Now, tarona could be translated as rona, which is representing crying, or it could represent rina, which means singing. In this case, it means crying. The chokhmah, when it's outside, it cries. Barechovot, and it is when it's in the streets, titen kola, screams out its voice. Berosh homiot. Next pasuk. Tikra. At the head of the homiot is the busy streets. Okay. Tikra calls out. Bepithe she'arim, in the gates of the city. עוד פעם, בראש הומיות תקרא בפתחי שערים, right? So it screams out, it calls out at the gates, at of the city where you have the busy. That's where the shuk was. That's where the shuk went. That's where all the business used to happen. At the gates of the city. Let's remember, you're talking about the old time city structure, yes, where merchants will all gather at the beginning, at the entrance of the town, of the walls of the city, and so it was where the merchants will set up their shop, and then the people from the city would go there, right? So they would go from where they live to those busy streets, and that's where the trade would happen, yes. And then internally is the actual city where people live, right? Ba'ir Amarea Tomer, and in the city its words are being shared and expressed. So we have like this. We have the chokhmah that cries outside. We have its voice that screams in the streets. Okay, in the streets the streets outside of the town, and then we have the busy streets around the gates of the town where she calls out, right? The Chokhmah calls out people, and its words are heard and shared inside the town. If you recall, we discussed those 4 different levels in Shir HaShirim. We have the outside of town. We have closer to town, which are the streets, the ways to town. Then we have the gates of the city, and then we have the city itself. Do you remember that? Representing the 4 types of chokhmah and representing the 4 level of the 4 types of voices. So Shlomo HaMelech uses that again as introduction to the influence and the impact chokhmah has with different types of people. So chokhmot bachutz tarona, when the chokhmah is outside, it cries. Rina, first of all, he says, there's a major difference between the Reshaim that we've addressed until now and their approach and their behavior and the way the Torah should be behaving and should be engaged with. The Gaon explains that the Chokhmah, let's do the other way. The Reshaim all to now, all the 4 types of Reshaim that we've addressed, always are hidden. And their behavior is hidden, yes? They wait on the side of the road, or they come at night, they hide their game, they manipulate. It's a 2-dimensional type of behavior. What they prepare quietly in the dark, and then what they do on the outside, or they attack, or they manipulate, or they guide, or they orchestrate. Yes, it's always a 2-dimensional. There is the aspect of what they create and they engage with and they prepare in the dark, and then there is them going outside. He says, whoever lives in the world of sheker, whoever lives in the world of lies and manipulation, will always find himself hiding something. Hiding and manipulating and orchestrating. כי כל העוסק בזיופים מסתתר שלא תגלה נבלותו. When a person is involved with lying, manipulating, cheating, he always has the dimension of hide, where he hides what he's preparing. However, the chokhmah, bachutz tarona, the chokhmah, now he wants to take the definition of tarona as rina, of sing, of song. The chokhmah sings outside. The chokhmah has no shame. The chokhmah is shared. The Chokhmah is strong. The Chokhmah is transparent. The Chokhmah is voiceful, is clear and expressed. The liar, the manipulator, the stealer, the wicked always have a hidden voice. Now, let's be clear. We're not talking about tzniut and arrogance. Okay, we're talking about the chokhmah from within and chokhmah from without outside. When you use your chokhmah and you're hiding your chokhmah, it's because you're involved with sheker. When you are proud of your chokhmah, when you are sharing your chokhmah, it's because you know it's emet. Clear? I know there's a very fine line between the behavior and that it's the opposite. In the behavior, we want tzniut, we want you to be hidden, we want you to be quiet, versus the arrogance and expressiveness, etc. When it comes to the chokhmah, it's the opposite. A chokhmah that you cannot share, a thought process or an engagement that you cannot share is because there's sheker involved. There's manipulation involved. Good? That's how he starts. After the Gaon has explained and addressed that difference, and it's a very bold and bulk difference, he will start analyzing Shlomo's 4 levels of Chokhmah that break down into 4 levels of people and 4 levels of Torah and 4 levels of expression in a person. So again, 4, which are broken, in a mashal, broken down in 4 levels of the city. If you recall, we brought the Rambam in Sefer HaMoreh also that uses these 4 levels of city to explain in a kingdom. There's outside of the kingdom, far, and then there's around the kingdom, and then there's the gates of the kingdom, and then there's inside the kingdom, right? So says the Gaon like this. We have outside of town, far. When the Chokhmah is far, it cries. He says this is the Rona. The Rona is a sound when you hear a sound from far, a cry, you hear the cry, you hear the sound, but you cannot really identify what it is. You hear the sound that is very far. Unclear if it's a sound of happiness, if it's a sound of cry, if what it really means, what it's trying to express. It's a sound that's far, but you hear it. You just cannot identify it and relate to it and categorize it. This, says the Gaon, represents, on one hand, a voice that's unidentifiable, but we know it's a voice. A makom, far from the city, okay? Not so far that you cannot hear it, but far. The Chokhmah in the Torah that is called Pshat. The Pshat of the Torah is Makatuv. He brings an example. He says, "Vasukot teshvu shiv'at yamim." You have to sit in the sukkah 7 days. What is the sukkah? How you build the sukkah? What is the halacha of the sukkah? What does the sukkah mean? We don't know. Pshat, אבל זה כתוב. It says. רחוק הוא עדיין מאוד מהעיר. You're very, very far from even understanding what you're reading. אבל זה מה שכתוב. The pshat. It says when you learn the pshat of the Torah, when you're chokhmah, when you're an outsider, when you're superficial in your relationship with your chokhmah and with the Torah, so you will only grasp the pshat, or the pshat is satisfying enough. Says the Gaon, when the pshat contents you, it's because your relationship with your chokhmah is a relationship of an outsider. Your chokhmah is very far. It's not close to you. It's not important to you. So such a chokhmah, bachutz tarona, it's a chokhmah that cries. Why it cries? Because it's trying, the Torah tries to express, tries to connect, tries to send a voice, but all you hear is a sound. And you don't know how to identify it. That's the pshat. You have a lot of people like this. They tell you, mutar or asur, don't go into details. Mutar, I can do it, I cannot do it. You know, and they push to a corner the Torah to have to be lenient or take a firm stand on an action. This is a type of person that doesn't respect Chokhmah, that doesn't cherish the Chokhmah. Keeps it far, far. So the Torah cries about him, cries for that person. It means that a person, a Chacham, a Talmid Chacham that sees a person like this should have Rahmanut, should cry for such a person. It's multidimensional, how you apply the mashal, right? ברחובות תיתן קולה. The chokhmah raises its voice in the streets. What are those streets? Those are the ways to the city. So you're not at the city, but you're on your way to the city. You're much closer from the outsider, from the chutz, but you're not yet there. But one thing is for sure, is that the call, the sound, the voice are now identifiable. What does that mean? Now you know that there's a message, there's somebody talking, there's an expression. You can now identify if it's a voice that's expressing happiness or sadness. But what the message is unclear. You don't have yet. Says the Gaon, this is the drush. This is the drush. The drush is understanding elements that start giving you a certain havana, a certain understanding of what you're learning. It's putting common sense, more sense into what you're learning. In Hemda Genuza, he says it's referring to re'ayot, to support and logic that a person needs to understand better the Torah. He says that's the call, that's the voice. So you understand, you're identifying a voice, but you cannot determine what the message is, but you know it's a voice. You know if it's a, you know it's a voice of happiness or it's a voice of sadness. Says the Gaon. This is referring to a chokhmah that is closer. There is an engagement, but it's still outside. It's still not committed. It's not connected. You have people that want to understand. You give them, they learn a pasuk, they want to understand what it means, but they're not connected to it. They're not engaged with it. They're not relating to it. You learn something, you understand it. Did it do anything to you? No. Did it change you? No. Did you care to dive into it? No. But you understood it. You didn't leave it at Basukot Teshvu. You understand what's a sukkah. The sukkah needs to have 3 walls. It has to have a schaf. It has to be more shade than light. There are parameters. There's a logic to it. That's it. So in the Likutim, the Gaon calls it drush. In the Hemda Genuza, he calls it remez. So is it a ta'am? Drush is a ta'am, a taste to it, right? In Hemda Genuza, he calls it an intellectual logic. He wants some logic to it. Depending on the 2 Girsaot, yet it is still considered outside from the person. Says the Gaon Mivina, this is a person that can understand the concept of happiness, that can understand the concept of sadness, but cannot relate to it. The first level, Bichlad, does not relate not to sadness and not to happiness. Says the Gaon, the person that doesn't have a relationship with Chokhmah, and the Chokhmah is just something superficial, it's not a person that can understand your pain or understand your happiness. It's not possible. Then you have a person that can relate, he understands there is happiness and there is sadness, but it doesn't touch him. It stays very, again, superficial, but identifiable. So that's the person that learns Torah just to understand. No connection to it. Not connection to the Chokhmah. And that represents the call, yes? That's the call. Now we have an identifiable call. We know that there's a message in that voice. We can know if it's a happy one or a sad one. but we don't know the message. ברחובות תיתן קולה. בראש הומיות תקרא בפתחי שערים. In the busy streets, it calls out by the gates of the town. Says the Gaon Mivina, that's already the Sha'ar. Pitchei Sha'arim, the gates of town, where you had the marketplace, where the trade used to happen. We know that the Pasuk tells us, Shofetim ve'shoterim titen lecha bechol sha'arecha. Every gate you should put shoftim, judges, ve'shoterim, and police officers. Why? Because since the trade used to happen there, or you had financial disputes, and you needed a shofet, you needed a judge, you needed a chacham, or you had somebody that did a wicked thing, that stole, that took, and you needed a shoter, and you needed police, right? Explains the Gaon. Now we're touching or the remez, where he refers to a point of entrance to the sod, to the depth of the Torah, or the drash. But either way, what he's referring to is the same thing. Just calls it, or interchange remez for drash or drash for remez, depending on whether we learn the Chaim Nagnuza or the Likutim of the Gaon. But he's referring to the same thing. Now we're at the gates of the city. We're engaged with the city. It says these are the aspects of the Torah, the aspect of the Chokhmah that the person has in him. It's an engagement where he wants to connect, he wants to feel, he wants to relate. That's another level of the Chokhmah. That's when the voice raises. Now you have the message, you're hearing the message. I hear, when somebody's talking to you, say, I hear what you're saying. Meaning you're internalizing. The Chokhmah is already part of you. It's important. It's part of your identity. And when Chokhmah is important to you and is part of who you are, you hear things. You understand things, you absorb things, you relate to things. Now there is an emotion, there is happiness, there is sadness. There is a bond. This is the first time the bond actually connects the inner part of you with the outside. That gives you already the ability to assess, to judge, not to judge others, but situations. Allows you to take firm decisions. That's the shoter. The police officers knows what's right and knows what's wrong, knows how to take actions to what the shofet, to what the judge says. So not only do you know how to assess the situation, but you know how to engage in that situation. That's when the chokhmah is so important to you that it touches inside. He says, this is the netivot asod. This is the pipes, this is the ways, this is the path to the heart, to the depths of things. This is the message in the voice. Ba'ir Amarea Tomer, in the city, its words are expressed, are shared, are said. Inside the ear is the heart, right? If you recall, the ear in Shir Hashirim refers to the heart. Says the Gaon, when you really care, and Chokhmah is so important to you, that it's so close to your heart, that this is your heart, it lives within your heart, right? The Chokhmah is part of your heart, meaning the Chokhmah guides your heart, guides your emotions, guides your instinct, guides your inner essence. When you are one with your Chokhmah, then not only you understand the message, but you decrypt it. You understand the reason behind it. You can understand all the thought process behind those words, that message. He says, this is the Sodot HaTorah. This is the Sod of the Torah. When we're talking about Sod, we're talking about Kavanot, we're talking about Torah Kabbalah, we're talking about all the Pnimiyut HaTorah. We're referring to that aspect within us that is so alive and vibrant and important that it's not enough that I do. It's not enough that I know what's right, what's wrong. It's not enough that I can determine and engage and refrain. I need to understand the meaning behind it. I need to understand what's hidden behind that halakha, that message. It says when a person lives with his chokhmah, when his chokhmah is so part of it, that this is what he carries, this is how he engages the world, there's no way he's not going to want to understand the meaning behind things. He's going to want to live the experience, the reasoning behind it. This is when the Sodot HaTorah are revealed. This is when you are Bechadrei Chadarim, you're inside the city with the king. You're in his quarters.
One question, Rob.
Yes.
When you say the voice, what would it be? How we would define the voice? It's the thoughts that when you feel something and you're in a situation.
When there's a situation, there's many ways of approaching it. One way of approaching it is to be awareness. First of all, you have the one that's completely not aware, right? Then there is awareness. There's awareness. What does it mean I'm aware? I know that something's happening, but I don't really care, right? I don't really care. There's awareness and there's caring. I'm aware, but I don't care. And then there is I'm aware, and I thought about it, but I don't relate to it. It doesn't touch me. That's the netivot. That's the paths, the streets, the rechovot. And then there is I'm aware. I thought about it. And you know what? I cared to think about what I'm seeing, and I understand what's going on, and I'm taking actions about it. And then there's being one with the situation. I'm aware, I care, I understand, I care, and I become one.
Yes, but if for example you don't care or you're not very aware, there's a voice telling you you're wrong, you're not doing this, and you say that voice, take it out. I don't care. I'm gonna stay like this. That's the voice, like conscious. I don't know what's.
Yes.
It's the chokhmah.
Yes. At the end, it is the chokhmah. Yes, it is the chokhmah. But how you're talking about the conscience, like the different layers.
Oh, yeah, sometimes so the it's a voice there in the head.
The voice depends. The voice could be the Yetzer, could be Yetzer Hatov, Yetzer Hara. It depends at what level and at what intensity and how deep that voice is. Right? So if it's just a voice, who cares? That's the Yetzer Hara. If it's a voice, wow, interesting, but it doesn't talk to me, then it's the path. If it's interesting, I thought about it, I've learned from it, it's stuck with me, then it's already, the shuk. If it's why it's really interesting, I thought about it, I analyze it, what am I doing with it? How do I implement it? I mean, you can address it in the shiur. Let's take a question. You listen to the shiur. Good example. You want an example? And we're going to give an example. There's a shiur. There's a shiur, but you don't care. There's a shiur. Then there's a shiur. What's the shiur about? The shiur is about this. And those are the messages. Interesting. I heard what it's about. To me, it's not interesting. I don't think I should waste my time. And then there's a shiur. You heard about it. You know what? I want to know about the shiur. You're going to listen to the shiur. You're going to hear the shiur. And you say, okay, interesting, very nice. I learned about this. I learned about that. I know that this is right. This is wrong. We should do this. We should do that. Great. And then there is somebody that heard the shiur, that listened to the shiur, that understand what the Rav in the shiur tried to say, and after that brought that home and started relating to it. I have to, from that shiur, I've learned this. How does that apply in my life? How do I change from it? Can I learn from it? Can I absorb it? And the person carries and marinates and cultivates this shiur within himself. And now that shiur lives with the person, change the person, change his behavior, his outlook on things, his way of approaching things. So for one, it was super superficial. And for somebody else, you know what? It's in the sod, it's in the heart, it's in the pnimiut, it's in his inner essence. For one, it's the pshat, and for one, it's the sod. For one, it was just a voice, an identified voice. For the other one, it was a message. Behind those words, it's a message. Hashem is talking to me. For the other one, there's a voice out there. And in between, you have the one that knows there's a voice and knows there's a message, but okay. The other one is there's a voice, there's a message. The message is great, I heard it. It's good. And that's it. And then you have the one that lives it, that lives with it. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. Same thing, you take a chesed or it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's doing a chesed project or business. You have the one that lives the business and the one that does what he has to do. And you have the one that hears about it and the one that doesn't really care. So who do you engage with? Do you engage with somebody that lives, that breathes, that knows, that wants, that sleeps, and the subject? or the one that just does it because he needs to do it, or he couldn't even care less about doing it. This is how Shlomo comes out to scream about the Chokhmah. After he's addressed the problem and the threat and the reason behind it, he says, and you, as a Chacham, where do you belong? Now the Chokhmah speaks out. Now the Chokhmah screams out. It's a check, it's a check. You have to check on yourself. Where do I belong? And now the Chokhmah is, now after these two psukim, now he's going to be super, after he told you, okay, where do you belong in Chokhmah? Are you the simple guy? Are you the idiot? Are you the manipulated one? Are you the Chacham? And if you're Chacham, to what level of Chokhmah are you? Are you an outsider? Are you an insider? Are you a parveh? Because let me be very, very clear, says Shlomo HaMelech. Ad matai peta'im te'ehavu peti ve'letzim latzon hamdu lahem ksilim isa. Until when can you be stupid? Until when will you be ignorant? Until when you? And now the Chokhmah starts to voice out, and we're going to see in the next shiur. But that's a transition point. Yes, he's addressed the threat, the problem, the reason of the problem, the pain of the problem. Then engage. Where do you belong in the Chokhmah? And based on that, let's attack the situation. So, Be'ezrat Hashem, so we finished Pasuk Kaf and Kaf Aleph. We finished. We learned.
Spectacular.